Last night I did a monologue, excuse me, at 5 o'clock, and it's you can find it at glennbeck.com. Is this the most controversial thing Glenn Beck has ever said? And I contend that it is, at least with you, my audience. This is not something that people are going to gravitate to, but I showed you last night the chalkboard that we started with, 3-4 years ago now at Fox, that said, the communists and the radicals and the Islamists will destabilize the Middle East. It will sweep, cascade, and destabilize the whole world. And I said that was what we're seeing right now. We're seeing that right now. So what comes after this? Can somebody bring in those chalkboards? I think they were out in the hallway, because I don't remember exactly what I wrote on them. But I did this monologue last night where I said, this is what's coming now. And people are going to start to feel invisible. And they're going to start working harder for less if they're not already. They're going to continue to do that. They're going to begin to ask why. They're going to see the rule of law not being applied to people. And now they're really going to say, why am I doing it? And then crisis is going to hit. And they will look for somebody to make sense. Somebody to pull it all back together. Bottom up, top down, inside out. We are now at that point. And I laid out the plan. And I will explain it to you later on in this broadcast. But I want you to really think about what's happening in the world. The president is playing golf. Congress are playing games while the world burns. The media and our political parties continue to do nothing but blame the parties and blame the American people, one group or another. It's this group. No, it's that group. Now, how can you say it's that group? That group, if you say it's that group, it's a hate, now you're a hater. Well, you're just part of a hate group. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. And you and I and our friends, we're weary. We're war weary. We are sick of the politics. We're disgusted by the media. We're worried about our children. We're worried about our jobs. We're worried about our country. We're worried about tomorrow. What will tomorrow look like? And quite honestly, I think we're all very much the same, where we're just saying, this doesn't feel good. I don't like to hate people. I don't want to hate people. I don't want to feel this way all the time. I don't want to follow people who are telling me I should feel this way or punish people or hate them. And so we have found comfort in the arms of what's called the normalcy bias. And the normalcy bias is the irrational view in times of great crisis, whether it's personal or a national crisis, that what's happening is either not happening or is normal, or something very normal can explain what we've just seen, even though it's not. It's not even close to normal. For example, I have a friend, he talked about it on the air here a few weeks ago. He was walking down the street about a block away from the World Trade Centers, and he was on the flight path of both planes. And so they flew over his head, about 500 feet, over his head. Now imagine a 727 in Manhattan. That's shocking. Something you never had seen before. And it flew 500 feet over his head, and they all stopped. The shadow passed over them. They watched it, and they turned around, and it hits the World Trade Center. Now, can you imagine seeing that? Here's what the normalcy bias did. Within minutes, he was convinced, and he watched it. He saw it. And he was convinced, and he was convincing others that was just a helicopter. We didn't see that. That's crazy. That was just a helicopter. A helicopter must have just... What? And some of his friends were agreeing with him, and some of them were saying, no, dude, it wasn't a helicopter. That's the normalcy bias. That's what happens when something so irrational happens that destabilizes your system and your world. Same thing happened inside the World Trade Center. People, they feel the building shake. They might even smell the smoke. They know that they're seeing people jump out of the building. They're watching people plummet to their deaths. Somebody comes and says, everybody out, everybody into the stairwell, got to get out. They go down the stairwell. They get down maybe a flight. And many people did this. Oh, wait, I didn't turn off my office lights. I didn't turn off my computer. I'll be right back. And they went back to their computer to shut it off. Because the normalcy, I'm coming right back. I have to turn off my lights. I have to lock my door. I have to turn off the computer. They never got out of the building because of the normalcy bias. And that's It's a self-defense mechanism that honestly keeps us alive, but in the end is responsible for our death. Because we fall under the spell of that natural sanity-saving, but life-threatening human trait. Leaders of the world are also not immune from the normalcy bias, and some leaders actually use it to their advantage. Easy examples: normalcy bias, captain of the Titanic. Everything is fine. No, it's not. No, it's not. Everything is fine. She's unsinkable. And it spread to everybody, the crew, and all of the passengers. No. The mayor of New Orleans, during Katrina, everything's fine. We're not going to be drowned. We're not going to be flooded. They had all of the buses right there. All he had to do is, President Bush begged him, get out of the city. No, it's fine. This happens all the time. Normalcy bias. Same thing could be said for President Mubarak of Egypt and Gaddafi. Gaddafi watches Mubarak, what's happening to Mubarak, and Gaddafi actually thinks that's not going to happen to him. And yet what happens? Normalcy bias sets in, and he's dragged through the streets and killed like a dog. Worse than a dog. Leadership fails in situations like this most times. And America's leadership at this time has failed on all sides. The entire system is going into catastrophic failure. Epic, historic proportions. We live in historic times. Understand that. We live in tremendous times. Great, tremendous times. Look for the people who will be on the stamps at the end of this, because there are going to be those people that will be on the stamps. There will be those heroes. Look for the people that will be on the stamps, because we're living in times that 100 years from now, people will still be talking about it. Now, with the failure of our governments, the failure of our leaders, the failure of our parties, at this point, I don't think blame matters anymore. I think at this point, most of us know, most of this audience knows what the problem is. Okay, good. Well, what are we going to do? Keep ringing the bell on the same problem? Nobody's listening to that bell. So what do? Worry about blame later and try to shake people awake from the normalcy bias. And it's really not that hard to do. And if I may try to shake you awake if you happen to be sleeping, understand this fact. The president, Congress, Republicans versus the Democrats, Occupy Wall Street versus the Tea Party. Not important at this point. The guys who went and killed those cops in Las Vegas, they were first identified as Tea Party people. They were down at the Bundy Ranch, so they were immediately Tea Party. Do you know that they were also Occupy Wall Street people? Same people, just on opposite sides. So it doesn't matter. What matters is the building is coming down, and we got to get out of the building. That's what matters. I believe anybody with any kind of common sense who's not playing politics right now senses this to some degree or another, but they can't embrace this because they can't imagine things going this unstable. It's the normalcy bias. But we all know this. A house divided against itself cannot stand. That's Jesus. That's Abraham Lincoln. It cannot stand. Let me take it out of that and just go to structural engineers. A structural engineer will tell you after there's been an earthquake, a destabilizing event, after there's been an earthquake, you check the foundation. If the foundation is cracked or in any way compromised, you don't go back in the building because the building will collapse. Our building has a cracked foundation. The foundation that has always kept us together is cracked. And so it is no longer safe haven. And don't look for shelter under that. The center is not going to hold. De Tocqueville said, America is great because America is good. Well, I think that's part of our foundation that is cracked. The organizations, if you really want to go into de Tocqueville, beyond the bumper sticker, he said that goodness came from our pulpits, but our pulpits are cracked. The foundation in our churches, many of them are cracked. And so what we used to promote and practice good is gone. It's just gone. And the coarseness of our society is evidence of this. And so we have to slap ourselves awake and salvage and renew the foundation in our own lives or face our downfall. We have to change our course. We have to turn around and almost go 180 degrees in the opposite direction. And what I'm talking about is not policies. What I'm talking about is selfishness, talking about this me kind of attitude, this attitude of narcissism, of selfies, and then on top of it, hate, anger, and rage, because it is growing. And at the same time, those bad things are growing. Something else is growing. Apathy and ignorance and man's love for his fellow man are also waxing cold. Those things are growing. And it's because the others are growing. And the news is filled with dire warning signs. And each of these stories, each one of these, I've been doing this for almost 40 years. Each of these stories would have been huge at any time in my broadcast career. One of these stories, the border, Baghdad falling, the IRS saying the dog ate our homework and we can't find those, lowest learner, the lowest learner fact that she's just using the IRS to spy on American citizens, that we're using drones to kill people, that drones are in our skies, all of these things. The way we're treating our veterans, the VA. Just one of these stories would have been something that the press would have chewed on for months. Now it's so 12 seconds ago, I don't even know it. Our borders are on fire in a way that is totally different.